Science fiction is not a genre that is easy to emulate, especially in TV shows. Doctor Who definitely had its charm, but so did Stargate SG-1. Based on the lore of 1994, this program took quite an interesting approach for the science fiction genre. And in today's video, we will be looking into this show. So strap in and let's get on this journey covering all the known and unknown corners of the universe. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. The genesis and journey of Stargate SG-1, 1997 through 2007. Roland Emmerich's 1994 film Stargate was a cultural reset. It is one of the iconic films in the science fiction genre and has served to renew the interest of a lot of people in this genre as a whole. Seeing how popular this movie was, Brad Wright and Jonathan Glasner came together and wrote an almost 2-hour-long pilot episode of the show that we now know as Stargate SG-1. Children of the Gods, as the pilot was titled, established a few things that made this television show less of a revamp and more of a fresh show. The episode implied that the Stargate can help you travel to other planets, giving rise to a new lore. A series of Stargate teams was created by the President of the United States to make the story quite fresh. By the end of the show, it became clear that the Stargate SG-1 and the film were both set in different but similar versions of the Stargate universe. This way, people could explain away how most of the original cast was not recast, even though in reality, it was a budgetary issue. Some elements were changed in the TV series from those seen in the film. For example, in the film, it was implied that the race of Egyptian god Goa'uld was mostly extinct, but the TV series was completely different. The Goa'ulds were very much alive, implying that we only saw Ra's previous host body and not his real parasitic form. In the movie, it was implied that each gate would have a separate symbol, but in the TV show, that was removed for the sake of reusing props. Instead, we got one true set of symbols that act as the common coordinate system in one galaxy. Abdos went from being halfway across the universe to the closest planet nearby now that there were so many planets involved. However, all these changes were well received by the fans, giving this show grounds to expand its lore. And expanding their lore is exactly what they did. This show ran from 1997 to 2007, with 10 seasons and 3 movies. This show reached the pinnacle of popularity that day, and we can clearly see why. In each episode, the SG-1 team traveled to a different planet, giving it an episodic feel. Later on, it becomes serialized, and it built up the complex mythology that involved the history of the galaxy and introduced so many new alien races. At first, the Goa'ulds played the villains in the series, but things changed in the 3rd season when replicators, a new threat, were introduced. After the Apophis arc in Season 5, the villain's mantle was taken up by Abdos, who proved to be quite the scary threat. The show struck a perfect balance between light humor and serious threats, making fans all over the world love its storytelling. Over its run of 10 years, while the tone changed quite a bit, the light humor and the comedic aspects remained constants. In Season 9, Claudia Black and Ben Browder were introduced to the show, making their last seasons quite memorable. So without more delay, let's talk about the fabled pilot episode, The Children of God. Navigating episodes and the climactic end of Stargate SG-1. The show starts exactly 1 year after where the movie left off. If you do not remember how the movie ended, that is fine. I will give you guys a short recap. In 1928, an archaeological dig was happening in Giza. The main archaeologist, Professor Paul Langford, found a large metal ring with symbols all around the edge of it. There were 9 chevrons present on the edge, and each of them was protected with cover stones. While Paul was working on this discovery, Catherine, his daughter, ended up acquiring an amulet, which sure looked very interesting. Now fast forward to 1994 when Catherine, an old woman, works to decode the Egyptian hieroglyphs for the United States Air Force. When she heard about the down-on-his-luck Dr. Daniel Jackson, who was the laughingstock of his seminars, she decided to confront him. She asks him to come to Colorado with her, and there, inside this nuclear missile silo, he comes across the cover stones that Catherine saw when she was with her father. Jackson translated the hieroglyphs and stated that the 7 symbols at the center of the cartouche were not words, but actually constellations. 6 were for the destination and 1 was for the point of origin. He told Major General W.O. West about this, and he decided to show Jackson the Stargate, what Paul Langford had discovered. With Jackson's research, he was able to find out which symbol on this Stargate happened to be the point of origin, and boom, the portal opened. A probe was sent through, and we found out there was a planet on the other side that could support human life. Now, if you can send a probe through this wormhole and learn that there are people on the other side, that definitely means that this wormhole can be opened from that side too, making the Earth vulnerable to extraterrestrial attacks. So the military forces got together, employed Colonel Jack O'Neill, and sent him with his team to go get that other planet with a bomb. The goal was to see if there were any threats to humanity, and if there were any, they were instructed to kill off the potential threat. Daniel Jackson decided to go with them because he insisted he would be able to align the cartouche on the other side and get the team back on Earth. But after they end up on this new planet named Abdos, they learn the harsh reality. The Abadonians are actually under the rule of this alien called Ra, who is definitely a threat to everyone, including Abadonians and Earthians. So the team is forced to decide if they want to join hands with the Abadonians or eradicate them along with Ra. I will not spoil the entire conflict or plot points of the movie because my words will not do justice to this amazing movie. But I will mention the one thing that is important for this video. Dr. Daniel Jackson decided to stay with the Abadonians by the end of the movie, and O'Neill swore not to tell anyone about it. Basically, they played it off, as everybody died except O'Neill and 2 of his teammates. The series starts with the Stargate program being no longer active. After everything that happened in the Abdos mission, the Stargate Command Center was more or less empty and deserted. Usually people did not come to that floor where the Stargate was present. So this deserted room became the best place for some officials who were looking for a quiet place to play poker. In the embarkation room, as it is called, 5 airmen congregated to have their poker session uninterrupted. With light-hearted jokes and crunchy chips, the whole group was having quite the time, except for senior airman Carol Wetterings. Carol had this uneasy feeling about the giant Stargate that is covered in a sheet. She tries telling her comrades about this, but her colleagues brush her aside. They insisted that they were the only people present there, and that most people in charge of the SGC had been shipped out for months. While these words were meant to confront the anxious Wetterings, they did not do much to soothe her nerves. What made it worse was when a short rumble echoed through the building. They all stood up and watched as the portal became active. The sheet covering the Stargate flew away ominously, and the mysterious object came through the Stargate. Despite common sense, curiosity got the best of her, and Carol picked it up. This object was a metallic ball that immediately lit up and scanned her. Before she could understand what was happening, a humanoid person dressed in serpent-like armor appeared. He comes out and grabs Wetterings, soon rendering her unconscious. Her colleagues, sensing her danger, decide to hold fire as they observe this tense situation. More serpent armor-clad people show up, one strikingly different from the others as he is dressed in gold. The armor went back to reveal a man inside of it. He asked his main guard, a man with a gold marking on his forehead, to Cree. Obviously, things were getting confusing and dangerous, and the airmen decided to start attacking the group when they saw the Serpent Man in gold examine Wetterings with a machine. The huge battle was devastating and barely lasted a few minutes. The guards were far too ill-equipped to fight the aliens. While the airmen managed to kill 2 of the Serpent guards, they were soon wiped out by the powerful blasts from the Serpent Guard's staff. Numerous guards, along with Major General George S. Hammond, showed up in the room. But seeing the unconscious Wetterings in the clutches of the Serpent Guards, Hammond asked the troops not to shoot, giving the captors enough time to run away. The Stargate closed down, and Hammond became very distraught over this whole situation. Knowing that the Stargate is now acting as the most threatening portal, Hammond decides to send out a message to Colonel Jack O'Neill, as he is the one who has gone through the Stargate before. O'Neill and his previous teammates, Kowalski and Ferretti, were questioned about what happened in Abdos. All 3 men, in their solidarity, refused to elaborate on what happened in Abdos, except for what they had mentioned in the report. Hammond tells O'Neill that he is going to send a nuclear bomb through the Stargate to Abdos, ensuring the place is destroyed because he is very sure the Serpent Guards come from Abdos. This threat worried O'Neill about the safety of Daniel and Skara, so he decided to spill the beans. Hammond claimed that O'Neill did not follow the direct orders, but O'Neill pointed out that he did. He decided who the threat was, and he used the bomb to get rid of the threat. However, as this fight did not happen on the surface of Abdos, the Abadonians were left unscathed and Daniel decided to stay back with them. Hammond did not quite believe him, but when they sent a box of tissues on his supporters' orders to establish contact, it returned with a short message, "Thanks, send more." This led to O'Neill no longer retiring and a new Stargate mission group being planned. Astrophysicist Captain Samantha Carter, who decided to join the three men, traveled through the Stargate and ended up in Abdos. There, they were welcomed with guns, and just before the situation turned messy, Daniel showed up. They greeted each other, and soon O'Neill told Jackson about the attack and kidnapping of Wetterings. Daniel was astounded because the Abadonians had nothing to do with this. After a meal, Daniel took the team to a large room where there were several hieroglyphs etched on the walls. He explained that there were actually a lot of Stargates across the Milky Way, and the Stargates can access several other places other than Abdos. While they were having the discussion, the Abdos Stargate opened up. The Abadonians and some members of the SGC team prepared for battle. Out of the wormhole came the Serpent Guards that had kidnapped Wetterings. They were identified as the Jaffa Serpent Guards who attacked the Abadonians. The battle was bloody. Skara joined this fight, and soon enough, the first prime of Apophis, the man with a marking on his forehead, grabbed him and asked where he got the weapon from. But Skara refused to elaborate and was taken away. Sha-Yuri, Daniel Jackson's Abadonian wife and Skara's older sister, tried to run away, but she was also kidnapped. When O'Neill, Jackson, Carter, and Kowalski heard about this attack, they came running back, only to see the destruction that the Jaffa Serpents left behind. Daniel learned about the kidnapping of Skara and Sha-Yuri from an Abadonian resident, while O'Neill tried to get Ferretti the medical attention he required. Daniel asked the SGC team to go back, and that is when Jack disclosed that he had orders. He needs to take Daniel with him because Hammond wants him back. Daniel realized that he couldn't ignore this order, and so to save the Abadonians from future attacks like this in his absence, Daniel instructed them to bury the Stargate after they left. He promised to come back after 1 year with Sha-Yuri and Skara. If he doesn't, then they have to keep the Stargate buried for the sake of safety. After an emotional goodbye, the group returned to Earth with the injured members. On the other hand, we see what the Jaffa people are up to now that they can have so many people they have kidnapped. Sha-Yuri is separated from her brother as the first prime of Apophis watches Skara fearlessly trying to protect her. The first prime told Skara that his death would not help his sister, which made Skara stop protesting. In the palace, the first prime is seen again, this time dragging Carol Wetterings with him. She was stripped naked and put in this weird trance. Carol is completely aware of her surroundings when a Jaffa priestess comes near her. The priestess has this X cut on her stomach, and from there, a weird centipede-looking creature emerges. The Apophis watched as the creature looked at the helpless Carol and then retreated back into the priestess. Turns out this creature is the Golden Man's wife. This creature is known as the Goa'uld, and it needed a suitable candidate to possess. But Wetterings was not a suitable candidate, so the Apophis used his Kara-Kesh and gave Wetterings a shock in her brain, killing her quite painfully. The first prime looked at this whole situation, his expression grim. Back on Earth, the team was given iris codes that would lock out after 24 hours. Once the codes are locked out, the Earth Stargate would be buried, and they would be left with no way to return. They were tasked by Hammond to make contact with the other worlds and assure there was some semblance of peace between them and Earth, preventing such brutal attacks in the future. Kowalski is made the head of the team that would go via SG-2, while Jack, Daniel, Ferretti, and Carter are given command of SG-1. Using the coordinates, they managed to figure out where the Jaffa people were from. Their destination could freeze someone to death. While that stunned the group for a second, they managed to quickly recover and get moving. Back at the palace, Sha-Yuri was brought in for examination by the Goa'uld. To everyone's surprise, the symbiote shows a preference for her. In a scene that induced shivers of disgust, the symbiote emerges from the priestess's stomach and burrows into Sha-Yuri's neck, seizing control of her body. Amonette, Apophis's wife, finally makes her appearance, much to the delight of the Golden Man. The first prime is disguised with what is happening, and this time it is clear. SG-1 and SG-2 teams came up with a plan. Kowalski was instructed that if Jack and his team were not back within the next 20 hours, Kowalski would have to go back to Earth. With that, Jack, Daniel, and Sam started their journey. They would meet a group of monks who helped take them to a town called Chulak. While the planet they are on is not Chulak, the group started referring to the whole planet Chulak. While eating in the town, they learn about Sha-Yuri's whereabouts, and when Daniel runs to her, they are taken prisoner. The group is thrown into the dungeon where they meet Skara. After this reunion, we learn the lore of this whole thing. While the Apophis looks like Ra, as the Abdonian people claimed, he is actually the serpent god of night. Before Skara could explain more, the First Prime and the guards showed up with more Goa'ulds, aka the symbiotes. They were going to use the Goa'ulds to choose who would be the children of God. This is where Daniel saw that Sha-Yuri is now the wife of Apophis, shocking him to the core. Skara is one of the few who is chosen as the host, and despite Daniel's begging, he is not chosen as one. Apophis orders his men to kill everyone else, creating immediate chaos among the prisoners. Jack calls upon the First Prime and asks him to save the people because he can help them. The First Prime hesitated a bit, but he stated that he believed in Jack's words and turned on his fellow comrades. The First Prime handed Jack a staff like his own, and together, they killed each of the Serpent Guards. Jack blew a hole through the wall, and they escaped there, with the former First Prime with them. This is where we learn that the First Prime's name is TLC. TLC is lost, as all his life purpose was to serve the Apophis. But now he had no one to serve. But Jack helped the man out and saved him from being killed by the Serpent Guards that were pursuing them. When TLC was escaping with them, he disclosed that he had a Goa'uld in his stomach. He is a Jaffa, a servant of gods, and this symbiote gave him perfect health. If he were to remove it, he would end up dying. This raises the stakes because it means Sha-Yuri might also die when Goa'uld is removed. Near the Stargate, the group found the Apophis leaving with his wife and other hosts of Goa'ulds. The team tried to stop them, but the Jaffa serpents tasked with killing them caught up to them, leading to a full-on fight. The fight was enough of a distraction, allowing the Apophis and the rest to leave. Jack, TLC, and Kowalski, with his SG-2 team, worked to protect everyone from the Jaffa serpents, while Carter and Daniel take the prisoners back to Earth. Kowalski was attending to one of his fallen teammates when a Goa'uld from a Jaffa servant who had been killed took control of him. This happened right before Kowalski came back through the gate, and it went unnoticed. The iris codes were locked, and every Jaffa servant in pursuit of the team was killed off. Hammond was much more focused on TLC, who came along with the team. After a bit of banter between Jack and Hammond, TLC became a member of the SG-1 team. Carter started working on figuring out how to send the refugees home by using Stargate. The iris code was unsealed, and everybody was busy figuring out what to do next. The main issues were how to send the refugees back home, how to save Sha-Yuri and Skara, and how to prevent Apophis from attacking again. But unbeknownst to everyone, the Goa'uld in Kowalski's body had taken complete control over him. His eyes glowed with an ominous orange as the episode ended. That, my friends, was the pilot episode of the show. It is 86 minutes long and packs a superb punch. The story is fast-paced, and it ends on such a cliffhanger that you have to keep watching the series to figure out how our heroes end up saving the day. Now, with TLC on the team, the group was ready for some new journeys that would completely change their lives, as well as mine, with their new space adventures. Unveiling the major players in Stargate SG-1. The main protagonist of this movie and show was Colonel Jonathan J. Jack O'Neill. In the movie, he was played by the phenomenal Kurt Russell. It obviously comes with no surprise that the TV show producers were not able to recast Russell for this character. So who did they pick for the final role? Why did they choose Richard Dean Anderson? Mr. Anderson was famous for his role in MacGyver, and he was a perfect fit for the role of a colonel who was serious but also knew how to keep the mood light. Jack O'Neill is shown to be dealing with some issues in his private life that are far darker than he lets on. His son accidentally killed himself while playing with his father's pistol. This incident turned Jack's life upside down. It led to him being suicidal and his wife leaving him. While she forgives him, as Jack explained, she isn't ready to let him back into her life. With this backstory in mind, we can understand why Jack is so calm whenever he is in dangerous, life-threatening situations. This added layer to his character is something I adore a lot, and Richard Dean Anderson did an amazing job portraying this character. Did you know that Anderson was made an honorary Brigadier General of the United States Air Force? This happened in 2004, and he got this because of his accurate portrayal of an Air Force officer. Being ridiculed for your theories is not a fun experience for any researcher, but imagine the satisfaction you would feel when the same theories that you are ridiculed for are proven correct. This is exactly what our favorite archaeologist, Dr. Daniel Jackson, went through. He was a linguist and archaeologist who believed that the pharaohs of the 4th dynasty never made the Great Pyramids of Giza. But then, as we know, he is proven right. He gets to meet with Ra, Apophis, and Anubis, all the Egyptian gods who are actually aliens, and stop them from ruining Earth. He must be quite proud of himself. In the show Stargate SG-1, Michael Shanks plays the role of the Doctor. James Spader played Jackson in the movie. Spader claimed that he found the script quite awful on his first reading, but after meeting the director, he was excited to go on this adventurous journey. One would wonder if that is how Michael Shanks felt when he was given the role of this character. Personally, I like how Michael Shanks plays Jackson. It is clear that Jackson is incredibly distraught over losing his wife, and Shanks' acting skills definitely make the audience tear up seeing Jackson go through the pain. Amanda Tapping is the smart girl on the team. She is the one we know as Captain Samantha Carter. Since her introduction in the first episode, Samantha has made it clear that she is the brains of the team. Jack does not want her on the team at first because she is a scientist. But when Hammond points out that Samantha is far smarter than Jack and they would need her to use the Stargate, Jack has no choice but to accept her. Samantha is sweet, kind, and helpful. Whenever there is chaos, you can see Samantha doing her best to stay calm and do what is right. I honestly love her character. She is so excited about Stargate, and the way she geeks out about the Abdonian Stargate in the first episode will always remain a core memory from this show in my heart. Finding a friend in an unknown place is quite an achievement, especially if that friend is someone as loyal and as nice as TLC. Played by Christopher Judge, the former first prime of Apophis is a character worth fighting for. Since the first time you see him on the screen, you realize that TLC is a bit different. He is far more gentle than the other Jaffa Serpent guards, and whenever the women are being tested by the Goa'uld of Apophis' queen, it becomes clear that TLC is not happy with how things are played out. I don't know about you, but I definitely saw it coming when he decided to change sides and join Jack. His loyalty to Jack and the team is very evident. TLC uses whatever knowledge he has to help the SG team against their extraterrestrial threats, and the unlikely friendship that blossomed between them over the course of 10 seasons is something I adore. Exploring popularity, significance, and personal reflections on Stargate SG-1. This staple of afternoon television aged perfectly well over the 10 seasons. Even today, this show holds up owing to the heavy characters and horror-focused stories. The whole point of Stargate SG-1 was adding a military setting thrown in with aliens and adventures. The show that followed the film was inspired quite perfectly. The Goa'uld scene from the pilot episode is nightmarish. As the show went on, the science fiction aspect of the story took over the challenges and limitations of military personnel against aliens. There are so many crazy things happening, such as blowing up stars, making spaceships, having space battles, and whatnot. One might think that the story went from pretty believable science fiction to downright ridiculous. The show starts off with a very believable premise. There is a portal that can connect the Earth to so many other planets. Nobody knows what dangers lurk beyond this portal, and so everyone is hush-hush about it. The military personnel in the series act up to the code, and we watch the story unfold as more and more countries learn about the secret Stargate program. The dry humor of O'Neill and his blasé personality made the story quite interesting. However, despite all the complaints one might have about the show, there is no denying that this story is one of the most remarkable science fiction shows of that time. While it gets predictable because the good guys keep winning and the stakes slowly stop being as high as they were when things started out, this show holds a very special place in our hearts. This tale of two worlds is proof of how imaginative and professional a TV show can be when everyone involved in the project really gives their all to it. The set pieces are reused but never feel like they've been reused, the special effects are great, and the screenwriting never lets the audience feel bored by the show. Marvelous verdict. Stargate 1 is the best reinterpretation and continuation of a film that I have seen. The characters are interesting, and they have motivations that we can understand and respect. The story has a very realistic setting, and honestly, I'd rather like the portrayal of the military Air Force in this show. The way this program managed to mix military action with horror and science fiction is just a chef's kiss. I am a big horror fan myself, and I recommend this show just for its practical effects on the Goa'uld itself. That scared me. But despite that little stinky bug, this show is perfect in my eyes, and I recommend it through and through. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe. Thanks, everyone.